Let me know if you're a real one if you know the words Project Refantasy. This was back before Persona discourse was overrun with people who get high-strung about the way Tom and Jerry treat each other. Grains of information was revealed about a new project at Atlas that was a deviation from their contemporary, yet counter to the times, RPGs. A traditional fantasy world RPG that is based on the themes and essence of Shin Megami Tensei and Persona. Project Refantasy honestly really captured my imagination as someone who was just getting into the heights of my interest in these creators, and if done properly, like in a poetic Tolkien-like way, I love fantasy. I pushed this lightly simmering yearning into the back of my mind as I went about my life in a way that would make Hollow Knight fans babble in confusion. Then like that, 7 years have passed and Project Refantasy is now Metaphor Refantazio and somehow inside of my PS5 generating a finished video game with a whirl. I can only describe what happened next as an abstraction of a cartoon character seeing a lake moated in light, running towards it an unnaturally athletic sprint to jump dive, holding my nose and slamming against the surface with a metallic cling. Metaphor's issues might come from its too intense clashing with one another. On one hand, you can feel that these dudes just really want to make some old-fashioned traditional turn-based RPG Dragon Quest shit. And on the other hand, to give the game an actual identity, there's a want to inject Persona-isms in some attempt at contemporary political/social commentary. Metaphor's identity can't come to fruition. It is built upon disparate puzzle pieces glued together, gaps in between on a white space spelling out "fuck you." Okay, you've got decently satisfying gameplay loop where boom boom killing things is viscerally felt through an unaccomplished audiovisual flourish, and also sword skateboarding. But also incredibly clumsy, ignorant, and insensitive to the times politics that don't channel that counterculture Atlas once had through a trite, unsure narrative. If you walk down the hallways of the worst parts of the internet, you'll overhear some dude with a nasally voice complain that Metaphor feels like Persona bet fantasy while they lean against a wall that says wet paint. Actually, I kinda wanted that. But instead, I felt a lack of the things that actually made me connect to Persona and fantasy. I look at Metaphor's setting and atmosphere and compare it to Persona's and wonder if they just forgot the sauce. Persona's setting feels intimate, vibrant, and idiosyncratic. Passing by and chatting with friends in the hallways of Gekukan High School, changing seasons blares to convey the growing energy you feel as you acclimate to your new home, as I visit the nurse's office for unethical human experimentation, or traversing the rusty, cloudy country of Inaba with a strangely upbeat, youthful, melancholic heartbeat, heartbreak, or even the sly tune of Beneath the Mask as you sleuth through the silhouetted cityscape of Tokyo. I mean, you can argue the approach isn't the same, since Metaphor has a bigger scale in multiple towns, but it doesn't do much to give these towns a lasting impression. Like Hyrule Castletown and Twilight Princess is a large town with a torrent of city dwellers forever running from one location to the next on dignified but worn stone, as the soundtrack morphs according to which street you turn onto. Dali Village in Final Fantasy IX is a village with a quiet lullaby on the air, made intimate with each party member exploring on their own for the first time, interacting with villagers as a conspiracy bubbles underneath, giving the village an impressionable duality despite its short term in the narrative. Metaphor tries to land in between the two styles of intimate Persona setting and adventure across multiple towns, but lands in some pallid limbo. Droning percussion floats amorphously through most of the textureless locations. The soundtrack and setting have no real identity, resulting in a thin atmosphere. Locations don't feel alive, but instead feel like flat studio backdrops to whatever is happening in the plots. On top of that, there's not really any world building in this game, as nothing really exists outside of the tournament of the king, which I would say all of this might be fine if the game was focused on something else, but for a game that leaves it up to you to go off and interact with the world that you are trying to save, the world feels rather hollow, and so my shit's given for this world parallels of football watching boomer dad listening to his wife. Character is possibly the biggest thing Metaphor is lacking. Ain't no homegrown sauce flows through this work, passed down from your great memoving foxing paper of recipes, no edge and no flavor. It's not Persona, but it's not really its own thing either. I feel like Persona becoming pretty mainstream must be the result of a monkey's paw curling. The series has a certain edge to it that results in obnoxious dialogues between a bunch of nobodies. Apparently this Persona character is responsible for all systemic issues and not an attempt to capture a human being fumbling around in the dark. Yeah man, some Persona characters have an edge, and that's what makes them interesting and somewhat versimilar. Hold up homie, Metaphor's characters tackle difficult, real subject matter. Hulkenberg, an honorable knight with a predisposition to eat weird shit. That's it really. Oh yeah, Stroll looks like any other character also voiced by Kensho Ono. Juna, Yufa, the microcosm that illustrates the lack of character in the characters is the removal of individual personas. Besides the hundreds of personas the protagonist can cycle through, personas are specifically representative of a character's personality. In Metaphor though, you get archetypes, something that's conventional by design to be patterned after, so characters can interchange their archetypes with each other without there being any dissonance. This ripples into the character approach. Just like her starting archetype, Hulkenberg is the knight with the blank slate characteristics of a knight without peculiarizing it. Therefore you get nothing to dig into, no psychology or humanity to understand and empathize with. I think the characters can be engaging enough, even if certain attempts to give them humorous eccentricities came off as too cloying and insincere for me compared to Persona characters who had more pronounced serious contrast to their weird bits. The most impressionable for me was Haizumi, whose cute appearance contrasts with the tragic, gravelly voiced assassin. He carries a certain pathos that is sorely missed from the rest of the characters. He even has that edge I think is missing from the rest by him being a stupid bigot. I also think Fidelio is alright, compellingly dynamic in the way he jumps from scathingly skeptical to compassionate for a certain few with a well-executed character arc. I unfortunately thought the well-acclaimed Louis was a character more compelling on an early playthrough due to screen presence because of Yuichi Nakamura's performance mostly, and intrigue rather than from any sort of thematic value. When you finally get the full picture of his character and take a step back, his depth is equivalent to a painting of a politician with devil horns and a cartoon tear below his eye. The potential ideological complexities around him feel watered down when he's just like, I will become God and kill everyone, instead of his eye-rolling meritocracy so main characters can throw candid arguments at theses without any illustrative points. Then you beat him with the power of friendship, which is yet another theme more watered down than it is in Persona. My friend told me Louis feels like a strawman villain by the end rather than a character providing a real perspective. There isn't really any intimate and messy exploration of ideology. Not enough people with conflicting ideas and gray morals. It's just like, do you support blatant evil? Yes, no. They don't address any fallacy of his ideology. It's like, oh, he's lying, kill him. This framing suggests that there is no problem with the system itself, but that it gets polluted by bad actors, often insane and possibly murdersome, which is usually one of the most non-committal, lukewarm political takes you can have. You won't be able to point to any progressive politics in this game or anything that can inform us who are a little freaked out about what is going on in the world right now and what we can do. It doesn't even commit to what seemed like a critique of populism, aka the worst thing to happen to American politics. It's kind of like, well, if the super popular prince is actually really nice, then like, whatever man, toss out them bad eggs. Put the discount bin Persona 6 Scooby-Doo crew in charge of the government, the royal heir and all his friends. Nepotism will save our country. This is like being told by a Democrat with perfect teeth that America will be fine once we get you-know-who out of office, while they fail yet another election because they don't believe in anything. Katharina argues for wealth redistribution because the bourgeoisie are perpetuating the state of oppression in the world because they think that if everyone else has less money, we get more money. She's the only one who is ride or die with her belief. Bring out the guillotine. But the game also kind of nervously rubs its hands together, eyes darting side to side, and says, but maybe she shouldn't because violence is bad. Psst, bro. I thought our whole mission was specifically about killing one dude because they will make the world a worse place. Instead, it stands on poor people should just work harder and educate yourselves, even though the system is specifically built to keep poor people poor. So basically the game says fuck poor people actually. They're just gonna stay that way. This isn't that surprising to me now after seeing that Atlas higher-ups have inserted a lot of pro-capitalist sentiment in the Persona 5 gacha game. Them stockholders probably got a whiff of wealth redistribution sentiment and were like,
That word come in here right now and eat you all alive!
Also, the portrayal of racism is strange. Like, what is the deal with Eldians? The player character is supposed to be part of the most oppressed fantasy race, but you never see them or hear anything about it really. Then after a bit of gameplay progression, the racism kind of just fades away. I think gamifying racism is kind of not a good idea, honestly. Your eloquence is maxed out, my liege. Now the city won't think your race is filled with blubbering baboons anymore. An Eldian became king. You defeated the final boss of racism. Racism is defeated. The title of the game actually is supposed to mean that this is a metaphor for the Obama campaign. There are messages sent but without the proper amount of evocative language to support it. This game tries to do some meta, self-aggrandizing framing of fantasy. This was an idea that could have tickled my brain. Actually, like I said, it happens that a lot of my favorite works tend to be fantasy. Not because I think knights are cool, their lives seem genuinely boring, but because it is our imagination creating a vivid canvas of all the colors of one's experiences from the real world, blending together to create new colors. It is an extension of what makes life great, an appreciation of life. My favorite part of the game is when Nurse stops the runner to let the characters take in a gorgeous landmark, which is then sketched out into a personalized physical memory. My favorite of these is a towering tree with leaves colored in intense red spreading in rebellion against a wide desert, a blending of colors. Fantasy is effective because it highlights the real world, not because it is an escape. The Lord of the Rings isn't just a bunch of shit that has nothing to do with us, it's one big rumination on death. Metaphor almost goes for a similar angle with Moore's book. The utopia within the book isn't an escape, but a dream that creates an ideal to make the world a better place. The utopia is modeled after the real world, but no racism and problems apparently. Is it made up or was it a place in the past? The game is unfortunately a bit messy and non-committal with this symbolism. I thought I was going to pull off some interesting meta-narrative plot twists with this, but all I can really read from it at the moment is a convoluted metaphor for fantasy being inspirational. You could argue that this is supposed to convey some grass is greener on the other side sentiment by making it look silly to look at fantasy as an escape because where there is people there will be the same issues no matter the world. But I think the game ends up falling into the same trap with its saccharine ending, so I'm not convinced this reading hits. I'm not here to give off the vibe of a guy slamming his fists on a desk. This critique isn't malicious or to put anyone down. In fact, if you have different interpretations than me, I'm open to hearing them. I made this critique because this game came out around the time it became very apparent to everyone that the world is kind of fucked systematically. Fascism is on the rise due to wealth inequality our system creates, and we are probably moving toward a technocratic serfdom. I say probably to cope. In these times, the messages we get from art can provide us a feeling of solidarity or direction. Art can help us comprehend where we are at in life and maybe even has some persuasive power. I just feel concerned because metaphor seems to dismiss a lot of the struggles that are overtaking the world right now with platitudes. This is a misinformation age where lots of people don't know what the problem is, which is done on purpose. So I'm concerned seeing metaphor being lauded for its story like they believe that the platitudes it recycles are the cure. A cynical part of me feels like this is an easy game to use for progressive posers to act like they are making a difference instead of volunteering or shooting a billionaire. I actually wanted to make this essay as a way to try and create solidarity. because that is one of those various ideas metaphor flirts with that I think is important. I personally feel like they could have done more than use some ham-fisted power of friendship by using the social links to get across that one of the most important ways to make a change is solidarity. By helping each other, realizing we aren't so different and coming under a common goal to pursue. Rich assholes invest a lot to obfuscate that they are the problem by manufacturing divides between race, gender, political alignment, and probably the persona community with CIA agents typing in, "I can't believe how awful Makoto is, yada yada yada." So please, don't fall for that.